allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call roll, please.
At West, Ward 1. Craig Drew, Ward 2.
Here.
Drew Worley, Ward 3.
Present.
Jeff Lucas, Ward 4.
Present.
Ryan Holmes, Ward 5.
Present.
Gary Howe at large.
Present.
Steve Heron, President Council, is absent this evening. Mayor Forthover.
I'm here.
Amy Hendricks, Finance Director.
Present.
Tony Valerius, Service Director.
Here.
Chris Howard, City Engineer.
Here.
Susan Anderson, Law Director.
Just made it. Here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have an approval for special council meeting minutes from February 10th?
So moved.
Second.
Vote. I don't think anybody have any questions pertaining to those minutes? No?
Holmes.
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
West. Howe.
Yes.
Motion carried.
This time we'll go to the portion of our meeting for open to the audience. We have 4 people on our agenda. First up being Mr. Jim Luby. If you could step up to the podium here and give your name and address for the record. You have about 3 minutes.
My name is Jim Ruby. I live at 233 Overlook in VLL. And my question tonight is for Tony. They have completed the sewer tie-ins in VLL, on Overlook rather. And they did some temporary repairs to our concrete pipe that's there, that's our drain that we put in many years ago. And they talked that was just a temporary fix, and then we're gonna do a permanent fix later on. Do you have any information of when that's gonna happen?
I do not. I would have to talk to the inspector on site to see, but anything that was damaged will be,
Yeah, they told me they just put the green, about 8-inch green pipe into the 10-inch,
okay.
and that's what they did. They probably took out about, I'm guessing about 100 feet of that concrete pipe.
Okay,
And that's out of about 500 or 600 feet total that there should be there.
okay.
So you don't know what the
I do
status.
not. I'll speak with the inspector on site, and he'll be able to let me know.
All right, because he had all said that they were gonna try to have a meeting. They didn't know with so much damage that they did do it, they didn't know whether it would be patch each one, because they didn't have the parts to repair it.
Okay.
Or
And
just
that's probably why.
tear up the whole thing and do it again.
Yeah,
All right,
so
Appreciate it.
I can probably have him get a hold of you.
all right.
I know you've spoken with him.
I thought he had to have permission from you or something to do something, and I was looking to make sure I was gonna be home and whenever they did the repair, so I could check my tie-ins.
Okay.
All right.
We'll discuss it.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Second, be Ms. Helen Tapp, I believe. Good evening, if you just state
Hi,
your name.
thank you. Helen Tapp, 3972 Edgewater. I have a request and it's regarding variances. And I'm wondering if someone wants to make the property bigger or build it differently, that they need a variance, if that can somehow be physically marked out so the neighbors can see it. I was not able to go to a zoning thing at one time due to circumstances in the family. And when I saw the buildings erected on the street, I was like, wow, that's taking up a lot of that lot. And that's my question. Anyone have a clue, or can we figure out how to mark it?
Councilman Howe, if I may, ma'am, Ms. Half?
Yes.
Okay, that's something that mostly pertains to the administration's variance board. It's an interesting question. Let us look into it. Let's Tony look into it, and I'll look into it, and we'll see if something is possible to give a better indication of exactly where the delineation is.
Yeah.
That's what you're after?
Right.
Okay, I don't know if we're actually gonna mark the ground, but if there's an
Just some
issue.
kind of flags or just something so we have an idea.
All right, well, that's a reasonable request. Let us look into it and see if we can't come back with an answer. If not, by next meeting, maybe before, we just give you a call. Is your number left with someone?
I'm not sure.
We can get a hold of her. Tony wants to respond, Mayor.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I mean, 2 weeks prior to any, request for a variance, we put a sign out there.
Right.
And then if, anybody in the area has any questions, they can certainly contact the building department, and we can give them a copy of what's being requested, that will have measurements and everything on it, and the variance that they're asking for.
I understand that, thank you.
Okay.
But I think for someone, perhaps like me, you know, who cannot visualize what, 37 and a half, whatever, and that's just, something physical that we could see. And one more comment, the men working, doing our sewer work, I believe they've been very professional and very accommodating. So I think that's really nice to know for us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Next, Mr. Homer Taft. Thanks, Mr. Taft.
Good evening. You've now heard from the better half, so now it's the worser half. I'm usually allowed to live in the same place, 3972 Edgewater. And I'll read as well if I can, but I probably can't. But I'll try to cover a number of points tonight. Thank you. I'm here to oppose 2025-10 and support 2025-12 in particular. And I'd appreciate an explanation of 10 because it's virtually the same thing that was did by council a couple of meetings back in February, and put $750,000 in the sewer capital fund from the general fund, which is paid by everybody. But there's a very large acreage portion and value portion of the city, and particularly everything in Ward 5 south of Brown Helm Station, including a lot of Brown Helm Station Road, that is not serviced by water or sewer from the city. So you're taking their money and giving it to something else, and I don't understand the reason for that or why it's come back up. As to 10, you've heard me speak before, and I'll speak again on the fact that, I'm sorry, on 12, that you folks are sitting on an in excess of $6 million general fund right now. Projected to be 6.9 if I read what the finance director posted correctly. And you're getting an extra $1 million this year from real estate taxes, 700,000 of it at least in the general fund. So you're probably gonna end up with over 6. Before you start, as some of you regrettably have, looking for every place to spend the money, I'd appreciate it if you'd give back to those who are paying it, that live outside the city, or live in the city, work outside the city, and are paying the 2 credits that were taken away for financial emergencies, 2013 and 2016, in 2014 and 2017, the $650,000 per half of percent that you estimate that they have been paying. As I've said before, if you get $5 million and you divide it by 8, it comes out to almost that $650,000. I know the finance director said I was wrong last time, but with respect to the finance director, I'm not wrong. Math is math and dollars are dollars. If you take $4.7 million and you divide it by 8, you get about $600,000 a year. And you're gonna get even more now. So I really hope that you do at least repeal one of those 2 removals of credit, as to which the voters never got a chance to have any say, and which were put forth in each case quickly at the end of the year by emergency vote for a fiscal emergency that clearly hasn't panned out that way. I would like to thank the finance director for posting financial information online now. I've been able to see some of it. It's very helpful to look at that and understand a little bit more about the fiscal condition and financing of the city. So I appreciate that from her. I I do have a number of questions which are on the reverse of the thing I gave you tonight, and I provided that to the finance director and members of the administration. And I'm not going to your relief, I'm sure, I'm not going to read every one of them to you, and I know they're not going to all be answered tonight. I get that. But I would appreciate this information. I think it's also information that each of you should know when you're passing the budget. And it relates to such things as how much you get in income taxes for various accounts. What is the difference between general fund, permissive fund, and other funds? How much do you receive in real property taxes and for what? How much do you get in various charges? I believe that you are presently, under your current sewer charges, never mind the ones that are scheduled for the future, you are currently getting far in excess of what you actually are spending, even for the current wastewater treatment, other than putting it in a savings account for a $70 million project that may never happen. And that makes no sense to me. I think you need to roll those back. Similarly, I think you're accumulating money in your water account. On that account, I would, once again, as I did last time I spoke here, say, you are asking the general fund and all the taxpayers to pay for a dump truck for the water division that you do not get service to all of the city for that water department. So it is a user fee that's available to that, and I think that should be spent out of that, not just to spend the general fund. Thanks so much, and I'll look forward to the answers from the service director and finance director in the future.
Thank you.
We'll enter this into the
Yeah, we'll enter
record.
this into the record, Mr.
I'll
Taft.
attach it to the minutes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And finally, Karen Rothig, did I say it right?
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I just came with a statement that I'm gonna
Name and
read.
address first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen Rothig, 5015 Pineview Drive.
Thank you.
So I'm no longer gonna ask how the city makes decisions on growth because it's become abundantly clear that the city has no intention of providing a true and responsible response. Your repeated use of the phrase, "at this time," is nothing more than a way to avoid answering the real question. So that leaves two possibilities. Either you do not know how long a long-term impact of your decisions, like Sunnyside, meaning they were made without proper planning, or you do know and the answer does not favor the city. So you are choosing to let time and inevitable changes create a not my fault scenario. In either case, one thing is clear, you are placing our city at risk. There will be consequences that impact our children's future, our ability to support families of varying economic backgrounds, it's already affecting us, and the long-term sustainability of this community. Yes, at this time, there is an open field right now. There is no need for additional police, fire, ambulance, street services, or utilities. But that's not going to remain the case, and the public deserves to know what will be needed when this project is completed to 25, 50, 75, 100%. What is the projected cost to the city for adding police, fire, services, street maintenance, electrical, sewer, and other infrastructure at full completion? Will the increased tax revenue from this development fully cover those expenses? If so, will there be additional funds left over, as it's been implied over and over, to support the rest of the city? If you do not know the answers to these questions, I ask, why would you approve for such a large development without having any idea of what it will do to the city? And if you do know, why are you not being transparent about it? Because I've been coming up here, I think this is my third time asking this question, and I keep getting at this time. So, do you know these answers? Because at this time, response is not acceptable when you are actively approving these projects. Beyond this specific development, there are multiple projects in the works and future growth opportunities coming into Vermilion, and we welcome those. But are we prepared for those with responsible planning? Are we setting ourselves up for financial strain that current residents will have to bear? Growth should be positive, but only if it is managed with clear expectations and a full understanding of what is coming versus what is going out. This is the very basics of business. Why are these numbers not being discussed when you guys are making these decisions? You're voting, but no talk of what the impact is having. And I watched the minutes from the last meeting, and a good point was made. I mean, a lot of times we just see you guys do this and yay, yay, yay. There's no discussion as to how you're making a thorough decision if there's no finances, no discussion put on the table. So finally, let's talk about the TIF. The public's being told that this large development will generate revenue for the city, funding services and infrastructure. However, at the same time, discussions are taking place regarding a TIF for Sunnyside development, one that would shift millions of dollars in tax revenue away from the city and directly into the developer's pocket. That is just one project. What other deals are being made that reduce the city's financial benefit while still increasing its obligations? Residents deserve full transparency on what this means for our future. We should not be approving projects with vague assurances when the reality is that tax dollars may not even stay in the city to support the very services that are supposed to fund. And the people of the city deserve real planning, accountability, and real answers.
Response to the audience. Please, Mr. Valerius, you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to respond to some of the questions that were raised by Mr. Bonneman at the last council meeting. He stated that emergency votes were due to poor planning, and he used the example of the city's purchasing of salt, asking if salt would be more expensive to buy in October or November rather than it would be in June. To that, I would like to explain to the public that the city participates in the annual Ohio Department of Transportation road salt contract, which consists of several municipalities and townships throughout the state that join to negotiate the best salt prices. Every April, the city receives a request for the tonnage of salt we plan on purchasing for the upcoming year. I come up with the tonnage, and I submit a request to council in the form of a resolution, which must be passed by emergency due to ODOT's requirement for a quick turnaround time for the document. And regarding the ice breaking, Mr. Bonowit asked if it would be better to negotiate a price in June or July rather than in winter. The city does not negotiate a price for ice breaking. We advertise it for public bid, and we're lucky enough to have found a contractor willing to even bid it after the previous contractor, unfortunately, who broke ice for about 25 years for the city, unexpectedly passed away.
Thank you. Finance Director, I believe you have something as well.
Thank you. Wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of subjects from the last meeting. I'm confident that the majority of our residents would consider having $3.3 million in additional revenue available to the city in the last 7 years to be a good thing. But let me provide a little bit of detail about that. In response to my update on report on investment earnings of $1.4 million in 2024, Councilperson Worley inquired about the interest expense for the same period. The interest expense for the same period was $1,054,817, which represents a net gain to the city of $334,000 after all debt service is paid. Given that the debt service expense is on the books regardless and brings much progress to the city, investment income is a bonus, and I think that should be, I'm sure most of our citizens appreciate that additional tax or non-tax money available. Also, there has been much media attention about the VOL project and getting the lead into my response for Mr. Taft's question about additional debt in the city compared to 2017. Of the new debt, 4.265 million, 43.5% of the new debt issued since 2017 is for that very project that Mr. Taft frequently has lobbied the council for to replace failing sewer infrastructure in his VOL neighborhood. It has been done without assessments to individual owners, as many previous projects have included. Once completed, all impacted streets will be resurfaced as well. Fortunately, a grant was awarded in addition by the state of Ohio that fortunately covered the project costs that exceeded the bond amount due to inflation. The total additional debt is approximately $9.7 million. While that seems like a large sum, it is a sign that project is made and work is getting done. These borrowings were secured at historically low interest rates and secured with specific revenue streams. The funds have provided roads, water, storm and sewer lines, new police and fire stations, parks, etc. Prior to this borrowing, the council adopted a policy in 2018 that regulates borrowing levels at the recommendation of our municipal advisors. Municipal advisors are required under Ohio Revised Code for public borrowing and act as advocates for the city in these transactions along with our bond counsel. A quick glance at the Auditor of State's financial health indicators illustrates that Vermilion is trending in the right direction. Yes, we have increased debt, but more importantly, we have raised the city's ranking for important conditions such as capital assets and infrastructure out of the crisis ranking, where such a high percentage of them were in need of replacement, to also strengthen our financial stability. Also, Moody's has been a rating agency that has reviewed our finances at each time that we have done borrowing. Also, this ties in with the comment made this evening about potentially accruing a balance in our water or wastewater funds. Yes, the wastewater is intended to help pay for the financing that has been secured thus far and going forward for that wastewater project that we really aren't sure exactly how it's going to play out yet at this time. But for example, in the water fund, we have many, many miles of water lines and other types of equipment that are in need of replacement. So I guess my question would be, we can accumulate savings to offset those costs, or we can borrow. But the work needs done to keep our city functioning either way. So I don't feel that the administration or council has anything to apologize for moving the community forward. Also, the revenue dedicated to the streets fund for the 2017 forgiveness seems to be an ongoing dispute, but with Mr. Taft. But those funds do go into the streets fund. They do not go into the general fund. The revenue goes to the streets fund. And many initiatives have contributed to the general fund surplus. So to say it's one specific thing is wrong. If the surplus, it doesn't take long to count things like $2.2 million in interest income that came into the general fund during that period. Savings in an extra $500,000 at least a year in annual health insurance savings over a 7-year period, and a host of other initiatives that have contributed to strengthen our financial position. So the concept that people have been taken advantage of to accumulate a balance in the general fund is not an accurate projection of the services provided. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. You have anything? We'll move on.
Hey, you threw a lot of stuff at us here. I'll go back and listen to all that. But there's a couple things that jumped out at me. Did you say there was an increase in $9.7 million the debt that we have since 17, is that what you said?
Correct.
And you said 43.5% of,
That went to the VOL lateral project, 4.265 million.
and you were saying that that's 43.5% of all the debt service we have?
Of the 9.7 additional.
9.7 additional.
Yep.
Do you have the figure of what the debt service was in 2017 then?
No, I didn't bring that. You had asked me what addition was, so that's what I had brought.
Gotcha. No, that's all right. I was just curious because I know when you sent me the fund the other day talking about showing all of our debt service that we have out there, it looks like we have $35 million outstanding. So we had $26 million in debt in 17 roughly.
Probably, yeah. We had a bunch of bonds, or I'm sorry, notes that we rolled in finance.
Yeah, that's what it looked like when, there's some stuff in there like the lagoons we rolled in and some stuff. Thank you.
All right, correspondence.
We have a few pieces of correspondence this evening. The first is a Trex liquor permit application for Garage Bar and Grill LLC located at 5391 Liberty Avenue. We also have an additional liquor license transfer, and it is going from Brown Home Country Market Inc. at 1605 North Ridge Road in Vermilion to Ambika Inc., also at 1605 North Ridge Road. And then we also have a letter from Mayor Forthover. Dear President Heron and council members, I reappoint David Turkin to the Stormwater Management Committee for a 4-year term to end December 31st, 2028. John Gabriel is appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals to complete the term of Dan Phillips to his obligations that will conflict with the board's schedule. This term will end December 31st, 2026. I also appoint Mike Cremeen to the Planning Commission beginning April 1st to complete the term of Guy Seiko, who has moved just outside of the city limits. Mr. Cremeen is an engineer retired from Bendix. He and his wife are residents of Sunnyside Road. Mr. Cremeen is being appointed to complete a 5-year term which will end December 31st, 2028. Thank you for your favorable consideration of these 3 appointments. Sincerely, Jim Forthover, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you. Nothing under President and Council or at large report. We'll go right into committee reports, starting with Councilman Lucas.
Finance Committee met on February the 10th, and it was quite a lengthy discussion. There's about 10 pages worth of notes, and the primary bulk of it was about the administration's general fund recommendations. And I would highly encourage everyone who has not gone to the Vermilion website to look at this. It talks about the $5 million carryover and their recommendations relative to Streets Capital Fund, Service Department Equipment, Wastewater Fund, and General Fund remaining funds. And so I would, again, highly encourage you to go out, if you haven't read it yet, to read it thoroughly. The next meeting is scheduled for March the 10th, and that's the end of Finance Committee.
All right.
As far as historic design, they did not meet in February. Next meeting, so no report. Next meeting is March the 5th at 6 p.m. Planning Commission did not meet in February. No report. The next meeting is March 5th at 7 p.m. And Stormwater Advisory, also no report, no meeting scheduled. And those are the end of my reports.
Anyone have any questions? We'll move right on to health and safety.
Thank you, Councilman. Fire chief report, fire hired 4 new firefighters. They were actually sworn in on the 24th. And the fire chief also discussed training. They hosted a nice rescue class and some other trainings at EMT Basic and Firefighter 1. And basically, they're up 71% as far as firefighters having Firefighter 2. And they're also up 83% with EMT Basic. Police chief report, they had an award ceremony. Patrolman Kinsey Chandler was Employee of the Year. Patrolman Bailey was promoted to sergeant, and Chief Hartung has picked a retirement date of April 10th, 2026. There's some discussion regarding body cam, and for further notes on that, you can go to the Vermilion website. Next meeting is March 10th. This building.
Any questions for Councilman Holm? Move on to tree commission, Councilman Royal.
Tree Commission received for their 13th year in a row, Tree City USA. Besides that, I have no report. Next meeting is March 11th at 9:30 a.m. at the Parks Park.
Any questions or comments? All right, let's go to legislative. Legislative committee met on February 10th. There's two things on the agenda that evening, one being a review of 2025-7, the tax increment finance TIF moratorium. You can read the full notes on the website regarding that and all the discussion. The second topic was a review of ordinance 2025-4, that being the Vermilion Employee Operational Manual. There was some discussion as well that you can read on the website to have the full understanding of those notes. The next meeting for that is March 10th here in this building at 6. If there's no questions, I'll move right into the parks. Parks met on the 18th of February. There were several things and several pieces of fun, or several bits of funds allocated to the park projects moving forward in the city. The pickleball courts were discussed over at West Breeze off of Route 60 there. There was a spot of money around $30,000 that was given and allocated out of the Park Capital Fund for improvements at Shozy Park. I think that really hits the high points. The next meeting for the parks is March 18th at 6 p.m. here in this building, and the full minutes again can be reviewed on the city's website. And that will conclude my reports for legislative and parks. Councilman Herring's out here for Streets, Building and Ground, Port Authority, Main Street, Vermilion.
I have nothing to report. Our next meeting is March 6th.
Thank you. Councilman Drew.
All right, Board of Zoning Appeals met on February 25th. There was 3 issues. 1 failed, 2 passed, not a board, and they'll meet again on March 25th.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Mayor Safety Director's report.
Thank you, Councilman Howell. I report this evening is mostly, is totally safety director report. As was suggested, we swore in 4 new firefighters the 24th of February. It's my privilege to administer the firefighter's oath to those firefighters in front of their friends and family. The new firefighters are Jim Onspaw, Colin Ransom, Arthur Mead, and Andrea Bartow. Chief Brown will go into more detail of some of their backgrounds and what this means for the department as a whole, and his report to the health and safety at the next week's meeting. But the roster in the VFD is now at 25, which is pretty good. It's considerably up from where it was when Chief arrived. On a police matter, the VPD received a report of an armed robbery at Pizza Hut Vermilion last week. I have had numerous inquiries, as I'm sure the VPD has, about the details of the report of the incident, which I always direct to the VPD. All the VPD can say at this point is that the incident is still being investigated. Captain Graham will be bringing his report to the Health and Safety Committee next week, and if there are more things to discuss, he will discuss them at that time, but currently there are not. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody have any questions for the mayor? All right, we'll move on to Service Director's report. Mr. Galeras.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The street department has been out every day filling potholes, as long as the weather has been cooperating. Winter plowing has left some of the roads in pretty rough shape, so they have been out trying to relieve drivers from a bumpy roadway. And last Friday, the ice jam finally broke free. The city was ready, had all of the river ice broke, but it did get hung up at the mouth. NGW Marine Contractors were able to move out and free up the jam, which allowed the ice to flow out without an incident. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Service Director? Now we'll move on to the Finance Director report.
Thank you. The appropriations for 2025 are on the agenda this evening for the final reading, and these will be then submitted to the Erie County Auditor to comply with the Ohio Revised Code deadlines. The general fund totals $9.49, just under $9.5 million, which is in line with the final 2024 general fund expenses when you adjust out the contingencies and the carryover projects in those special funds. Final postings are all made and included for 2024. We also will need finalize the cost estimates for capital projects that are just wrapping up from 24, as well as those that are planned for this year, to be able to look at some of those special funds a little bit closer. The NOPEC grant that we receive annually based on the usage of the enrollment accounts that we have in the community. The annual legislation is up for a first reading for the Energized Community Grant total, and we currently have $55.9 million in carryover funds. About half of that is actually going to be expended with some projects that were just wrapped up at the end of 2024 and paid for in January. And in 2025, the new allocation is $27,661. For gap and audit, we are on target for the data compilation for our 2024 gap financial statements, and has been the case in the last several years. There are new standards to meet. For GASB, 101 is the current this year, which entails reclassification of compensated absences for all staff for the current and 2 prior years. This is an additional project to the ones that have been added in each of the previous years to maintain, along with GASB lease requirements, software, and subscription inventory tracking, etc., that began in recent years. We have been supporting the audit staff, supplying information remotely, and they will be back on site all next week. Our level of federal funding for 2024 has, again, as it was in 2023, put us in the classification of a single audit, which involves additional testing and compliance standards beyond the normal annual audit. I anticipate the same will happen for 2025. Ordinance, I do have a comment about Ordinance 2025-12, which is on the agenda for this evening, to give you some financial perspective on that. Those monies that are currently collected from that change in forgiveness from 27 to 2018, as the collection in 2018 is, as mentioned earlier, deposited into the Streets Fund 200 rather than the general fund. And for reference, the revenue received due to that action in the last 3 years, that regardless of where it would go, would not be collected. 2022 was $625,900. 2023, $544,203. 2024, $607,219. Also, last year's $607,219.
Thank you. What was 22? I apologize.
2022 was $625,900. With the date of the implementation in the ordinance at January 1st, please keep in mind that if the ordinance were enacted, we would be very close to completing the first quarter of 2025. So it would be either repaying RETA or having reductions to the payments that would come through the rest of the year. That concludes my report.
Any questions for the finance?
I do. Do you have an idea of how many residents live in Vermilion and work outside Vermilion?
And then I just looked at that number. No.
And then the other part of that was, how many of those that work outside aren't subject to the RETA? That would be something I'd be curious about.
Okay. That would be, they would all be subject to at least a 0.5%.
The 0.5%, but
Otherwise, it depends on what the tax rate is where they're working.
if they're not participating in RETA, let's say Perkins Township.
It would be whatever, even if it's not a RETA collected tax, it would still, the percentage of the rate would still be counted the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll move on to the engineer's report.
Thank you, Councilman Howell. Just want to give everybody a quick update on the DOL sanitary sewer project. The contractor has completed the sanitary lateral repairs for Overlook, Roland, and I believe Aldridge today. They will be moving to Harcourt and Woodridge next, moving south. Ask everybody to be patient with them. Obviously, during construction, I know it's inconvenience to the residents, but we're trying to do the best we can. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the engineer?
I have one.
Go ahead.
With respect to doing the roads, after several have been completed, what is the strategy moving forward for, let's say there's 4 roads done, weather has broken? Can you share with the audience?
Yeah, I think the contractor wants to do it in phases. Obviously, the plants aren't open yet, but I think they want to get a couple streets done, and then they'll probably go pave those instead of trying to pave them all at one time. But we'll get a schedule from them once they figure out how many streets they want to do.
That's a fantastic idea, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, law director.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Any old business? Doesn't look like it's under new business. Does anyone wish to entertain a motion to authorize the administration to go out to bid for a new snowplow truck?
So moved.
Second that one for discussion.
Any discussion?
So, I learned from Tony that our current status with snowplows, the trucks, the oldest truck is a 2003? Two. At the end of this season, being removed from service.
Yes,
It's no longer safe to go out.
correct,
Second oldest truck is a 2007,
correct.
and that's what, about 18 years old, give or take. So how much life do you think is left on that?
Well, I mean, there's some electrical work that needs done to it right now that it's done for the season. We've gotta, take it.
Are you promising that?
Well,
That it's done for the season?
well,
I'm sorry, that was.
no more big snows, yeah. We're gonna take it out of service for, repairs to its electrical system. It's got some significant repairs that we made on that. After that, I mean, 18 years for a salt truck is a lot.
Agreed.
The exposure to salt and corrosion is always there with those. So, right now, it's okay, it's roadworthy, but, you know, if we do go out to bid for, or, if council approves going out to bid for a truck now, and we end up purchasing the truck, I mean, the last truck we got took us 2 years, we still don't have it yet. Like I said, at the last meeting, I've heard they're getting better with that, but who's to say? It could be another 2 years.
So there's still one in the pipeline that we haven't received yet.
Correct.
In this motion, you're asking just to go out and get another price on another new one.
Yeah, and I mean, I can get a price and then council can choose whether to pull the trigger or not. Now, this price would be for the chassis only, because you go out to bid for the chassis, which is usually an international truck. And then after that gets made, then you would go out to bid for the dump bed, as Amy always puts it, the tractor truck. You know, the bed, the salt, feed and all of that. So, and we can't go out to bid for that now, because if it's gonna take 1.5 years for them to build the truck, you know, prices are gonna change. Estimates are only good for 30 days usually anyway, so.
So you kinda answered my question I'm gonna ask you, but the longer part is getting the truck, not necessarily the bed and the plow, right? Or,
That's usually the case, yeah, although they've had it since, outfitters had it since, I think, November now. So they've already had it 1, 2, 3, 4, going on 5 months. They said April, so that's what they keep
So-
saying.
about 6 months to equip it, and maybe a year to even just get the truck.
At least a year.
All right.
Anyone else?
Again, this is just for, you to go out to bid, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll decide if we want to move forward after that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Worley,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
West, Hop.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Another motion on the agenda here, motion to authorize administration to go out to bid for a dual axle dump truck with stainless steel bed.
So moved.
Second, for discussion.
Open to discussion.
Tell us about the needs for the dump truck.
Again, that was the truck, that the distribution department uses primarily during main breaks. This truck is, 27 years old. There's several issues with the bed. It is a very small truck, inefficient. Usually, you know, if they are on site, they dig the main break, and it takes, you know, they have to load the truck, and they just sit there and wait until the truck goes back, dumps the load, comes up. Sometimes they will dig it out and just set, the spoils onto the street, and then they've gotta bring the loader out, and they gotta load it up, put it in the truck, because there's not enough truck, the truck's not big enough to serve the needs. Same thing, once they fix the main break, then they gotta get stone. They gotta go back to the shop, pick up stone, bring it out, dump it, go back to the shop. Like I said, 27 years old, we're looking at getting a bigger truck, a tandem.
You thought about leasing options?
We have not, we haven't looked into it.
We can look at that once we get pricing.
As far as the need too, just to underscore that, this season, I believe, the service director informed me that we've had 37 main breaks
Just this winter.
just this winter, and has beat the heck out of the truck we have. And, really begs the issue that we need to get another one on the pipeline quickly.
So I'll ask, of the 37, how many of them been contracted out? Any of them? How many have dug up, or who,
I think
Justin Miller?
I think we had help with only one of them. Our guys usually do all the main breaks, unless it's in an area where we know that the water line is really deep,
Mhm.
and we oftentimes need help from another contractor that has bigger machinery.
Okay,
But that's,
so we're doing the bulk of them?
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd be okay with at least voting today to go out to get a quote, but I would like to see some lease options, with that.
Those can be a little tougher too because of the lead time, but we can look and get some estimates.
Go ahead.
Can the plow trucks, you know, once you remove the salt dispenser out of the bag, use as a dump truck as well?
Well, I mean, these,
I mean, I know it's a lot bigger.
the newer salt trucks, they have
Have to be-
the salt chute and everything in the sand, you really can't.
Okay, I'm just, yeah,
The old trucks, again, they're in the lumber, they're not,
right. Okay. And could this newer,
and they're not much bigger than the truck that they have now.
could you throw a plow in front of the new dump truck if needed? If you were to get the new dump truck, could it be outfitted with just the plow? Instead of, you know, not the salt spreader, but just the plow, if
You
needed?
mean the old,
No, it's tandem.
The standing one, if you were to get the tandem.
I suppose it could. We
Okay.
would.
Okay.
It doesn't have a salt, it wouldn't have a salt delivery system.
Right, right. But you could still push snow with it, if needed, I guess.
Yeah,
Any other questions? Go ahead,
Yes.
West. Lucas.
Yes.
Holmes.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
On a motion on the agenda, entertain a motion to authorize the city engineer to prepare design plans for the improvement of a street in Vermilion as designated by council that can be funded by $2 million from the streets fund.
So moved.
I would make a motion that we put this, on the agenda to discuss moving forward, rather than,
Committee,
yeah.
streets, buildings and grounds.
Yep.
We have a motion. We have a motion.
Yeah, you have the one motion, we just needed a second for
Second.
the design plans. The design plans.
What do we got a motion from Councilman Lucas to,
Motion second. What's on the agenda?
so,
You gotta call the roll after you have discussion.
And then we have discussion.
Any discussion?
I guess what's the motion, because we had,
The motion is what he said
Prepare
to begin
design.
with, to authorize city engineer to prepare design plans for the improvement of
that's what
street.
we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'll say that I'm gonna vote no on this motion to, so I'm more in line with what you're talking about. I was gonna make the motion to put this to streets, building and grounds, but we got the so moved was instantaneous, so that's just my 2 points.
Anyone else?
The part of it is getting to move to those, streets, roads, and grounds to discuss it. So that's why. To move it forward. To discuss it.
Well, I mean, council, okay, this is not unlike the proposal for the trucks, which is to simply go out and get a design estimate, so the council can decide further, but it has to be a design of something. So
Well, I think in the past, we've always, collectively brought some streets to the table to talk about at committee.
Yeah,
And now we're just, looks like we're throwing a dart in the dark.
Well, there's no dart, I mean, there's plenty of streets out there to pick.
Well, yeah, but we gotta have a list of them to pick. The way this thing reads is, you guys are just gonna pick one for $2 million.
No, it says it's council.
Well, I think we still have to have a list before we can make that determination.
After the last, speech discussion last year, there were things that couldn't be done, like Pine View was a big one. Brown Elm Station was another, that were left over from the last discussion. So, I mean, before we go stirring up new ones, there's ones that were unaddressed from the last time we discussed streets.
Good.
I think there's a lot that we have to work through, just throwing $2 million somewhere. Especially if this other ordinance, we decide to pass to reduce the tax, income tax. I mean, maybe that 2 million we set aside for streets and offsets the income tax, ordinance, if that were to pass. So, I mean, if we were just to pull $2 million out and throw it at a street, and then we pass the ordinance that reduces the income tax, I mean, how much money is really gonna be left at the end of the day for streets? So, yeah, I'm not ready to vote yes for this at this point. And we need to have some lengthy discussions. We only got one shot at this. We gotta do it right.
So just so we're clearing this up, we have a motion to put this to committee meeting,
Not
correct?
yet.
Not yet.
Okay,
Let's
so
do
this
the
is,
motion that's on the floor.
okay.
Okay.
Call
Who
the roll.
seconded that motion, by the way? I didn't hear.
Holmes.
I did.
Okay, I just didn't hear it on here. Thank you.
Okay, Worley.
No.
Drew.
No.
West. Lucas.
No.
Holmes.
No.
Powell.
No.
Okay, motion fails. So now you can just refer it to committee. We can refer, I think he wanted to do that. You can do by motion if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion just that we refer to the streets, building and grounds, for us to evaluate the streets list.
Second that.
I'll put 2025 streets program up here, Kevin.
Sure. Yeah. There's no more discussion on it. You want to call it?
Holmes.
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
Worley.
Yes.
Drew.
Yes.
West. Powell.
Yes.
Motion carried. That'll be on next week's agenda.
Next motion on the agenda here is motion to approve the appointment of John Gabriel to the Board of Zoning Appeals to fill an unexpired term of Dan Phillips with a term ending date of December 31st, 2026.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
I just wanna make sure that he's available and he will take this time. So I know there's
He's been on the BZA and he will take it.
okay.
Yep.
Lucas,
Yes.
West, Drew,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Another motion to reappoint Dave Turkin to the Stormwater Management Committee to a 4-year term with the term ending date of December 31st, 2028.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
West, Holmes,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And finally, a motion to appoint Mike Kriegman, effective April 1st, 2025, to the Vermilion Planning Commission to fill the unexpired term of Guy Sacco with a term ending date of December 31st, 2028.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Lucas,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
West, Holmes,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We'll move on to the reading of the ordinance and resolutions. Ms. Anderson, if you would, please.
Third reading ordinance 2025-6, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Vermilion, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025.
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-6?
So moved.
Second.
Observation? Go ahead, Mike.
Drew,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
West, Al.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Proceed.
Second reading ordinance 2025-8, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Vermilion to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Erie Soil and Water Conservation District for the Erie County MPDES Small MS4 program and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to?
No, that was the reading.
Oh, well,
And
okay.
referred to
Let's
legislation.
proceed then, sorry.
First reading ordinance 2025-9, an ordinance amending ordinance 2024-10 adopted May 13, 2024 in reference to the City of Vermilion Employee and Operational Manual.
We'll go to a second, proceed.
First reading ordinance 2025-10, an ordinance transferring funds from one appropriation to another and/or appropriating funds not heretofore appropriated.
That will go to a second reading, proceed.
First reading ordinance 2025-11, an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council NOPEC 2025 Energized Community Grant and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a second reading, proceed please.
First reading 2025-12, an ordinance amending chapter 88207 entitled Credit for Tax Paid to Other Municipalities of the Vermilion Codified Ordinances and reestablishing a full 1% credit.
I believe that'll go to a second reading as well.
I make a
Can we, I was just gonna do that, can we make a motion to put that on, to talk about it, legislative and committees? Yeah.
So moved. Second.
You made that motion?
Yeah.
Okay. West, Drew,
Yes.
Worley,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Proceed please.
First reading resolution 2025-R2, a resolution agreeing to cooperate for the purpose of providing Aqua Run water slide splash feature and exit slide pad at the Vermilion Community Pool under the terms and conditions of the 2025 Local Park Capital Improvement Grant and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a second reading as well. Our next meeting will be March 10th here in this building, at 6 p.m. And then following that will be an April 7th council meeting, followed by the 14th, be a council committee meeting at 6 again, and at 10 at the Vermilion City Council meeting April 23rd. And that will conclude our meeting for the evening.